Hi, hello, welcome or welcome back. Thanks for being here. This video is part 2 of my previous video, so if you haven't seen that one yet, I suggest to watch that one first. I created my own little advent calendar with art supplies that I already own to try and convince myself that I don't need to buy new things, and I was right, I have a lot of stuff. And in the first video I used 6 of those and created 6 spreads in my sketchbook, and in this video I'm doing the last 6 materials. This challenge was really fun, I had a great time, and I think the results are also really cute, so thanks for being here, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. A small reminder of the prep that happened in part 1, I basically chose 12 materials, trying to reach into the back of my closet to make sure that I get all the materials that I don't use very often, and I wrapped them all up into these little packages from 1 to 12. And for 12 days leading up to Christmas, I unwrapped a package and created a sketchbook spread using the material that was inside that package. Welcome to day 7 of my advent calendar challenge. We're starting to run out of little guys in this box, and the material today is Bistre Ink. I did not know what this was when my model drawing teacher asked me to buy it for our class, and I haven't used it since my model drawing classes in uni, like 6 years ago. Basically, I think it's a type of natural ink that comes from this powder when you mix it with water. One of the only things I remember is that you could choose how much powder you want to put to create either a darker or a lighter brown. So I wanted to start by familiarizing myself with the material once again, so I created these little gradients. I really love how the deep brown looks. I think it's so beautiful. Also, when I was mixing the powder with the water, I saw that it was doing an interesting thing when it started blending with the water. So I wanted to try to see how that effect would look on paper. And basically this texture is created from the little pieces of powder slowly blending in with the water on the page, which I think looks really interesting. I didn't really have an idea for this piece or this material yet, but I really like how this texture was working. And because of this challenge, I'm discovering old materials again. I thought it was fun to just kind of keep it raw and focus on this texture that this material can create. This idea also just matched my vibe for the day, which was just to see how it would go and not really worry about doing things perfectly and just letting the material figure itself out. And in the end, I decided that it kind of reminded me of earth and roots. So I thought I could do a sort of negative space of roots under the ground and have the texture peeping through. This spread just really reminded me for my love of texture, my love of like the spontaneity of using traditional mediums. I was a digital girly for quite a couple of years, and this year I've been trying to get back into traditional art, and just this spread being so pretty and the color, the texture, and I just love it a lot. So I also decided to leave the left-hand side of the page a little bit more bare because I was going to be sad if I covered up all the really pretty texture. I was honestly tempted to just leave the page as it was because I thought the texture and just the brown was so pretty, but I wanted to add a little bit of myself to it, so this is what I ended up with. It is day 8 of my advent calendar challenge, and the medium of the day is watercolor. I have this very handy little watercolor set which I take with me when I travel and want to do art on the go. Because I did quite a heavy wet medium piece yesterday, I decided to skip a page in between so that I wouldn't have to worry about me wetting both sides of the page and how the paper might react to that, because this sketchbook is not super thick paper. It's not really made for mixed media or heavy water media, but I still do it anyway because it works. It's just not going to be perfect, but that's fine for me. I didn't really have a plan for today. I knew that I wanted to try doing something with a limited color palette, sort of monotone, and flowers are sort of an easy comfort drawing thing for me, and that's what felt right. Now that we're getting into the second half of the challenge and near the end of the challenge, I'm starting to lose steam a little bit. Also, I have a couple client projects that I'm trying to finish off before Christmas as well, so don't have as much time as I did at the start of my challenge, so now the days are getting a little bit more stressful. So I'm trying to use the challenge as a way to de-stress for my day, and that means I want to do cute little things like little flowers and fun things. Basically anything that I don't really have to think super hard about or also don't have to worry about messing up. Though I did have many doubts during the process of this piece, I decided to just continue and hope for the best, and in the end I like how it turned out. I think I managed to save it with the outlines once again. By the time I got to the right hand side of the page, I had been going for quite a while and I was getting a little bit tired, so I decided to just do these outlines, and I think the spread overall looks really cute. It is day 9, we're almost at the end, and the material of the day is these little colored charcoal sticks. I didn't really know what I was going to do with these, plus I've only used them twice, the day I bought them, and then once more since then, and that was already a couple years ago. I remember they sort of act like soft pastels, which, to be honest, I don't love soft pastels. I think they can get very messy, and I don't really like my hands being dirty. My foster cat Réglisse came to check on my progress and disrupt the process a little bit, but she's very cute, so we forgive her. I also remember the last time I used these that I accidentally wet them and they were activated by the water, so I thought that might be something interesting to explore again this time around. I didn't really think long or hard about what I wanted to do. The color palette was already set, there's only 3 of them, so it was very limited, and it was giving me nature and it was giving me forest, so that's what I ran with. I haven't done a landscape yet in this challenge, so I guess it was about time. I found a reference picture from Pinterest that I could sort of loosely base my drawing off of, in case I forgot how trees look. And then I sort of just went for it. I was not very precious, I was not very careful, which sort of matched the medium anyway, so I just went with it and put some colors down, and then I brought out my little water brush. Also, I discovered this really nice texture when the page is already wet, and going back with the stick on top of that, it creates very crispy, dark lines, which I think were very beautiful. I don't particularly love how this piece turned out, but it really matched how I was feeling for the day, and I often don't really get very scribbly or messy, so this was a nice change of pace for me. It is day 10 of the challenge. This is the medium I was most worried about. It is Linocut Printing, and if I had had the choice, I would put it earlier in the challenge because I am currently kind of stressed out, and Linocut Printing takes a long time, and I felt like I didn't really have time for it, but I tried my best to make time for it. Knowing that Linocut was coming up, I already knew I wanted to do something with flowers, and I wanted to do something focusing on line work, because I usually work in the negative space when I do lino, so this is actually my first time keeping the lines, if that makes sense. I went for this very simple little illustration of 2 tulips, and I did make the rookie mistake of forgetting to flip the drawing, so halfway through I realized that this was going to be the inverse, but I was okay with it. This little set of Linocut tools I got, I think, earlier this year, and I have not used them yet. I do quite a lot of Linocut printing, which is why I wanted to buy a new set, because my old set was just the cheapest one I could find, and it's not very good to work with. But Linocut printing is one of those mediums that I find has a barrier to starting because it's quite difficult, it's quite messy, it's a lot of work, takes a lot of time. I did rookie mistake number 2, and I did accidentally stab my finger when I was like 90% of the way finished because I was kind of impatient and I wanted to just be done, and I wasn't being careful enough, unfortunately. It did not hurt that bad, but it didn't feel great. Now that the piece was carved, it was time to start printing. I did several rounds of printing, as I usually do, because I print by hand. I don't have like the machine that does it for me. And usually my first print never really comes out good, and by the time I get to like my 3rd print, it starts to take a good shape. This piece is far from perfect because I did make a couple mistakes while I was carving, but that's something I really like about Linocut printing, is that you can see the hand of the maker in it, if that makes sense, and it's never going to be perfect. This was the part I was really stressed about, which is why I did so many test prints on paper before I brought it to my sketchbook. If I put it down in the wrong place, then that's that. There was no undoing it, so this was stressful, but I managed to put it in the right place and it turned out really cute in my sketchbook. I never really play around with lino or do tests or things. I'm always working on like final pieces, so this was really fun to do a sort of carefree, easy piece and not have to be too stressed about it. Also, while I was working on it, I realized that it could be really cute as a little thank you card for orders from my shop, and I thought of that because I got an order today. So here it is, packed in my little order for today. It is day 11 and we are almost at the end. The material for the day was this brown Ecoline ink. This material had a pretty similar vibe to the Bistre ink, which I only used a couple days ago. I started with swatching and trying to create different tones of brown. I jumped straight into the sketching for this one because I already had an idea that I was planning to do for the Bistre ink, which I didn't end up using, and it is a forest nymph or a tree nymph waiting in the forest next to a tree stump. I didn't want to think too long or hard about this piece or be too focused on getting everything anatomically correct because I'm here for a fun time and it's just in my sketchbook, so I shouldn't be too worried. I was planning to do a light wash of the ink and accidentally went very dark, but we roll with it. I figured if I build up darker tones on top, then it wouldn't be such an issue. I don't really often work with just one color, so this was sort of like a value study, which I'm not very good at, but I think it didn't turn out too bad. At some point the colors were starting to blend a little bit within each other, but that's nothing an outline can't fix. I love a good outline. I did have a fun time with this medium. It was a little bit of a low energy day and a low energy piece. I can really feel myself getting more and more tired every day of this challenge, so I'm happy that tomorrow is the last day, but I've also had a really good time. Maybe 12 days is too many, because the first 6 I was having a great time, but the second 6 I'm having a little bit of a struggle, but it could also be due to the mediums, I'm not sure. I had a feeling from the start that the closer I got to Christmas, the more stressed I would be, so that's why I tried to do many at the start of December, because I knew I would slow down near the end. And this is how my forest nymph turned out. We made it to the final day, and by we, I mean me, and it is day 12, and the last material is oil pastels. I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with oil pastels. I love how pigmented they are, I love their textures, but I don't love that they can't be very precise, and because I'm working in a small sketchbook, I was a little bit worried for that. I quickly decided that I wanted to do a portrait, and because I'm doing my monthly portrait challenge, I decided to draw myself for my December self-portrait. 2 birds, 1 stone, all that. Because I'm working with a limited color palette, I focused on trying to create sections based on the lighting on the picture. So I have this really light yellow, and then my mid-tone is a purplish pinkish color, and then my darker shadow tone is the blue, and then I added the brown for the fine details. The colors kind of remind me of a sky at sunset, which I think is really cute. I knew that the fold of the sketchbook was going to annoy me a little bit, especially because it like cuts through the eye area, but I didn't really want to have the portrait just on one page because then I wouldn't be able to get precise enough with the oil pastels. But I still really like how the portrait turned out. I love the colors and I think it even kind of looks like me, so I'll take that win. And with that piece, we made it to the end of the challenge. I am very happy to be finished with this challenge, even though I really did enjoy it.